We are live for episode 42, The Art of Getting Past Hello. And I'm really excited to welcome Victoria Nessen, who is the Director of Marketing and Growth at CFAR, who I met at a networking event that was put on by Larry Gennari, who was a previous guest on this show. And then actually my funny story was that today I had a networking event with people that I met at the CFAR event that I went because I met Victoria. So that is the power of networking.
The extended family of networking.
Exactly. Amazing, right? Yeah. So Victoria, we always like to start off, as you know, by asking our guests, what is one cool networking event you've been to recently, and maybe tell us why it was cool.
Yeah, so I'm like torn. I have two great ones to tell about, but I think I'll answer the question everybody's going to say is, what was the CFAR networking event that Jeff was at? And It's called Not Your Average Networking Event, and it's held probably every 6 to 8 weeks, and it's this event where everybody comes and we have a theme, and every time you come it's a different theme. So we'll have maybe 70 people will show up, and immediately you're broken out into a breakout room, and there's a question based on the theme. So let's say it was like time. We might have the first breakout room's question might be, what's the most meaningful time you've had with your family? And then the breakout rooms talk about it, and we get back together, and then we, as a group, sometimes we talk about it, and then we might send you back off, and we send you back off into 3 different breakout rooms, and you'll meet 9 people over an hour. And as Jeff can tell you, you can kind of pick your 4 favorites or whomever and have a session afterwards on your own, or wait and see them at the next Not Your Average Networking event. But what's really fun is we've been doing this for about, I'd say, 5 years now. And the number of relationships that have been created off of this Not Your Average Networking event actually contributes back to it. Because when people come, it's like, you know, they're seeing all their old friends, and when we're in a large group, you can imagine 70 people in very organized, though, will say like, oh, hi, it's so nice to see you, Taylor. How was your cat doing, or whatever. So it creates its own community because everybody's connecting afterwards. So I would say that's the coolest one.
Yeah, so very well, and it was a very cool event. And you had invited me to an early one, and I missed it, and so I was super excited to get to go. And it was a lot of fun. And like I said, I've already got new connections, and we met today, and we're going to meet again in a month. And so here we are, like we've got a little ongoing group. So thank you for the.
I love hearing about this. So often I don't always hear about the ripple effects, which to me is like the most fun. But when I hear about it, it makes me so happy.
So I'm sure Amelia and Stephen and Taylor all have questions, but before they jump in with their questions, can you tell us a little bit about what CFAR does?
Yeah. So CFAR is a management consulting firm, and we focus on the arc of change. So we work with organizations preparing for change. So that might look like a not-for-profit organization that has had a leader for 23 years, and that leader is deciding to retire. And so they may hire us to come in and help the organization think about the shifts in their strategy. We might collaborate with their executive search firm to help find a person who's right for that position, and we might also help the organization prepare for their departure. Or it might be in the middle of change, like a family-led business, and the matriarch who runs the company, as the head of the company, has a health issue. And how is that organization going to decide how leadership is taken care of? Or it might be after change. It might be engaging the next generation in engagement in the business, family business, or in higher education. It might be a 360 evaluation of somebody who's a dean and has to be reviewed every 3 or 4 years. So our arc is through the arc of change. We work in higher ed, not-for-profit, healthcare, and family and owner-led businesses.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah, super cool.
I am going to let other folks dive in and see what you've got. But I mean, I've got tons of questions. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I guess to start, can you tell us how you started networking? Like, was there a pivotal moment? Was it something you got thrown into?
Yeah.
Tell us your story there.
So I come from a family who we all sort of have the same trait of being curious. We're always really interested in people and their origin stories. And so I grew up in an environment where it was just what you did is you ask people like, where are you from? How'd you come to America? Whatever, we're an immigrant family, whatever it might be.
Right.
And when I first got out of college, my very first job was on the sales floor of Timberland's Newbury Street location. And I kept a little journal of everybody that I met and what shoe size they were. And I would call them up when new things came in that they would be interested in. And one of those people was this amazing man named Saul Gold, who kept on telling me, when you're bored in this job, you let me know and I'm going to give you a job. And I was like, who is this guy? Lo and behold, he was Paul Fireman. So this is in the way, way, way back machine. Paul Fireman was the founder of Reebok. He was Paul Fireman's brand manager. And one day, another guy I knew through circumstances at Timberland had left and gone to Reebok. And the two of them were arguing about who they wanted to hire. And they found out they were arguing over me. And my friend called me up and he's like, what are you, an idiot? Saul Gold has been trying to hire you for years. And so in that moment in time, my little book from Reebok, from Timberland, has led me through a career. And what I learned is you never know who you're talking to. You never, ever know. And it always is important to take an interest in them and to follow up. And that just led me to sort of a career of networking.
And to clarify, you're talking about like Timberland the boot, right?
Yeah, Timberland the footwear company. Yep.
Sorry that's at the risk of sounding dumb. I'm just, you think about Timberland, you think of a sales associate calling you, you think of a very high end brand. So it's incredible that, did they train you to do that or?
No, it just, I was on commission and I'm a super motivated person.
You're a hustler.
I was a hustler. So I was like, I'm telling people, at the time, $200 pairs of shoes and, you got to hustle. And so I just would strike up conversations, ask them why they liked the brand, what, we sold clothing, leather jackets. And I'll boast, I broke the commission structure like 4 times. They had to reorganize it. Yes. Because I would you have to sell a certain amount. And then after that you get more and then you get more. And I was making so much money. They were like, we cannot pay an associate this kind of money. So,
I love that though. I mean, that's why we always talk about, sales is such a broad term because you can do so many different aspects under that umbrella. But when it comes to your traditional sales, commission sales, I love talking to folks that have done that or still in that because it is, right? Like when you're, a down to earth, if you will, human being, and you're genuine in the connection and wanting to know people, but then you match that with someone who's very hungry. It is such a beautiful and almost scary combination in a good way.
Well, it paid off for me because I had my own marketing consulting firm for 23 years. I had a staff and I was the only person who did business development. So that skills that I learned at Timberland paid off. And I'll tell you, I met clients in the line at Home Depot just by striking up a conversation, taking interest, like, what is that thing you're buying? And then they'd tell me and we'd have this conversation and I'd ask them about what they do professionally. And, we'd be checked out and they'd have my card and 2 weeks later I'd have them as a client.
Yeah, I completely hear you. I was, one of my neighbors was moving out and we've always been, chatty with one another, walking across in the hallway and on the way back from our grocery store. And when he's moving out, I was like, you know what, we chat so much. I don't have your contact information. Let's connect on LinkedIn and switch contact information. And he's a, CEO and founder of a life science startup, so you never know. But I think that is such a great, it's really not a question, it's more of a comment, but I'll throw a question in there. I think what you mentioned is you never know who someone is. Just at the end of the day, be a kind person, be genuine. Don't always have that attitude of what can you do for me? Naturally, things are going to happen because you're giving. So I think that's such a beautiful and very inspiring story from Timberland going over to Reebok. I guess when you went to that new position, did you continue on those, continuing on with your networking story? What did that look like when you switched positions? And did you kind of grow up that ladder, and then diving into your, you went to your own business? What did that all look like? Because that is the evolution of networking.
Yeah. So interestingly, I left Timberland and I spent years in the footwear industry. I went to Reebok, and then I went to Clark's. And the reason I got recruited to Clark's was there was a consultant for Reebok who I was a product manager who saw me present, and he was like, oh, she knows what she's doing. And he got hired by Clark's, and they had a position, and he's like, you should call her. And they brought me over. And then when I was at Clark's, my boss, who was one of the best bosses I've ever worked with, aside from myself, said to me one day, you've outgrown this role, and I'm not quite sure where we're going to put you. I was like the head of department store sales for them. It was a crazy role that he had an incredible confidence in me, more than I had in myself, and put me in situations that just stretched me. And then he was like, you're kind of outgrown this. And I was approached by my family business to come work for them. And I did that for 4 years. And no offense to my family, I loved working with my family, but I didn't love the industry. It was real estate finance. It was a little ho-hum. And they were all like, you should go start your own company. And so I took 2 weeks to go out and just talk to people. Like, if I start a marketing consulting firm, what do you think? And I literally came back after 2 weeks with a full roster of clients and off and running for 23 years. Wow. And my new position, when I decided that I had enough running my own company, and there were lots of things that were changing that made sense. I was a little bored, honestly, in running my own company. I happened to be having coffee with a woman who had been a client of mine, and she's president of CFAR, and I was telling her what I was doing, and she was like, you need to meet with one of my principals. And they basically, pitched me on coming to join them to help them think about growth. And so all of my jobs have been through relationship building. Never, I've had to look for jobs occasionally, but I've always gotten my job through relationships.
So I think your story really underscores something that I always tell people, young people, when they're going into careers, and people like, where should I start out if I want to be in marketing or whatever? And I always say sales, because I think it's like whatever you end up doing, having that experience selling is going to be helpful to you. And I did not have that experience, so I've had to sort of learn all this stuff kind of after a marketing a long marketing career where and by the way, marketing is not sales, right? We all know, but people often think they are the same, but they are not.
They are not.
Well, Jeff, I'm in sales. My dad still thinks I'm in marketing. So
you see,
come from sales, though, right? I think that's why I always, I'm interested when someone says they either came from sales or still in sales, because it's usually there's just those intangibles that a lot of people can naturally have if you're not in sales, but it's just stretched a little bit more because you have to use those consistently. And then going from sales to any other department, you're going to carry those on with you, which is, so I agree with the statement of starting in sales is a great place, because it's, you can bring those along with you no matter what.
And I think you learn a lot more in sales from like the front end of understanding your client, because you're the person on the calls, hearing the objections, knowing who you're losing deals to, understanding the needs, because people are coming to you to buy something, and if they aren't buying from you, there's a reason, and that all translates back to marketing. And I think it's really good into understanding not only your clients, but also just the overall market, and then also learning the product. Because the questions that a salesperson gets asked is a lot different than what a marketing person gets asked.
Well, I think often marketing forgets that sales is their best research department.
Totally. Mm-hmm. There's so much friction between the two departments a lot of the time.
Unnecessary. And I'm sort of a contrarian in the marketing world. I believe that marketing's job is to buttress and support sales, and that sales is, paramount in any organization, even in not-for-profits. That development is paramount. And as marketer, your job is to understand what that salesperson is going through and what they're hearing, and listening to it, and giving them the questions that you might need in order to fill in the gaps, and asking them to ask those questions, because first of all, they know how to ask questions, and second of all, they're seeing the most number of people. So I agree, like sales is paramount in any organization.
Go ahead, Steve.
I was just going to say, like, thinking through, like, having your own company to where you're at now, two very, very different things, right? So how have you navigated that, and, how have you changed? How have you had to pivot as a result?
Yeah. So I would say before I was ready to leave my own company, it was my baby. literally started at 6 months after my first child was born, and my kids were raised with it, and the company was raised with it, was getting complete with was I done.
Mm-hmm.
And I hired an executive coach, a very, very wonderful woman who I met through networking.
Of course.
Virtually. And she helped me really examine, I was thinking I'm going to rejigger my business. One of my employees who had been with me for 18 years was retiring, and I kind of couldn't picture doing it without him. And so I was working with her to think about what that might look like. And nothing kind of got me jazzed. I was like, I've been there, I've done that. Those of us who have our own companies, in 23 years are kind of always reinventing and rejiggering. And so I said to her kind of jokingly, I think I need to go out and interview for some jobs to see how good I have it. And as I went out and I interviewed, I was like, wow, I'm at a place in my life where I'm ready not to be the person that everything hangs on. Yeah. And that I'm at a place where I'm ready to contribute to a greater good beyond my business. And that idea of, helping the next generation develop their own skills, cultivate for a bigger organization that has more of an impact. I always kept a picture in my office of all of my staff members and all of their kids. And so I was always very conscious, I'm feeding 25 mouths right now. I'm feeding 30 mouths right now. And the idea that when I'm at CFAR, I look at, I always have up on my tabs that are open our company team page. And I'm always thinking about each of the people in my team and my company, what's going on for them, who's about to go on a vacation, and I want to make sure that they can afford that, who's about to have a baby, who's getting married, who's doing home renovation. All the work that I do to help build our business contributes to their job security and their family. And so it was through that hard work with a coach that made me ready to leave behind something I had worked on for a really long time and feel really proud about. So I would say if you're making a big shift, don't go it alone.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, and I think building on that, I've been thinking about this a lot, is this idea that because I'm guessing, and you can let me know if I'm right here, but because you had built your own business, going back into somebody else's business is a very different prospect, because that you could leave and do something, right? You don't have to be there. And I think a lot of times people feel in their corporate roles, I'm stuck here because there's nothing else I could do. I don't know. Do you agree with that, or is that?
You know what? That's actually a really eye-opening statement. So I do always think in the back of my mind, if all else fails, I can go sell for somebody, or I can start my business again. But I am not thinking about that on a day-to-day basis, because I actually really love what I do.
Right.
But I think it is a sense of freedom, mentally, just that I'm going to be okay. But more so, I would say, I'm in a very lucky position. CFAR, Debbie and the leadership there knew me. They had enough experience with me over the years to kind of know my skill set, and really crafted a job that allows me to contribute in a very meaningful way, makes me feel fulfilled. But mostly I'm fulfilled because I'm doing what they need to help elevate and build the company. And so it's a win-win on both sides. And I think that is one of the greatest gifts I've been given, is this sort of renaissance where I can bring all these skills and contribute to a greater good and in a different way. But I don't feel that same, like it's a job. I feel, empowered and excited by it, and happy to be contributing to this really amazing group of people. And I think at the end of the day, there is a little bit of comfort knowing, like, if, everything goes to hell in a handbag, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to stand up in the end.
Right. Yeah. And I think in some ways, I wonder if that makes, when when your sort of underlying motivation is not, oh my God, if I lose this job, I'm toast or whatever, whether you actually become a better employee and are less, like a lot of that anxiety and whatever, I have no idea. Anyway, that's the Jeff theory of.
I'm just sitting here listening, thinking about how you seem like such a team player. And so someone who's run their own business and also been in sales, I feel like a lot of times that's more of a individual contributor, very kind of eye on the prize. So I'm so curious. I don't know if you consider yourself like a big team-oriented person. But that's what I'm hearing. And I'm curious if that's played a role in how you've built your career, how you've built your company, how you ended up at CFAR, and also kind of the strategies that you take around networking.
Yeah. So I would say innately I'm a fiercely independent person, and I was raised, to be responsible for yourself. Like,
Totally.
Your actions, you deal with it. Not my parents are fantastic people, and I'm very, very thankful that that's the way they raised me. And so that fierce independence, I do think bodes well for me in that I've always been a self-starter. I, am not one to sit around and wait for things to come to me. I was always the young person in a job going, hey, it looks like we could use some help here. Can I do that as well? Like, just always who I've been. But I am very drawn to people, and I really love hearing about people. And I feel a little awkward now because you guys are asking me all the questions, and I have this big long list of questions I want to ask you about your career.
Too interesting.
Right, it's so interesting. I mean, we've got a fire safety and wine expert.
Yep.
We have above me, we have a middle management expert. Above me to, I don't know if it's my right or left when this gets broadcasted, we have somebody who's in the CAST, which is, client accounting services industry. And then to my left, I've got somebody, who's in the ransomware. And I'm like, let's bring the four of you together. That's what I want to spend this time talking about. So what I was going to say is that curiosity, being curious and asking the follow-up question, not to just say, I'm an accountant, I'm a lawyer, to take that question. Why do you love accounting services? Why are you, enthralled with malware, or ransomware, right? Like, not malware, everybody, it's ransomware. Things, know that they're different. That's sort of at the root of who I am, that curiosity, going back to that at the beginning of that's how I was raised. And I think that is what leads me to being a team player, because when you start to understand what's going on for people in your organization, you can lend yourself to that. And to take this back to our main subject about networking, I think there are, if you're vulnerable in a conversation, you create bonds. And I don't mean showing up and sobbing about your, cat who's on its last legs. I'm talking about being passionate.
Yep.
And when you're passionate, it's a form of vulnerability. But if you're excited about ransomware or client accounting services or middle management or, okay, you guys, we do have to ask them about the fire safety wine thing. I'm like, those two. But that's a whole other session, I have a feeling. If you have that vulnerability with people, you're instantly going to find points of connection. And that's how, you start to develop relationships. That's how you get to that point of getting past just hi and getting into the connection.
I don't even know how to follow up on that, because that was just so beautifully said. I know, just all right, we're done the podcast. That was so good.
I think it technically is time, but
I was just joking. But we talk about this all the time. We always talk about this. It's living your own brand, being curious.
Yep.
There's an art of selling where, a part of it is you are just the listener. You're asking the questions, but you listen. You're hitting on everything, which at the end of the day, networking, it's this big scary word sometimes that people, it's relationship building and adding to that and continuing it. And you're hitting all of those key points. So again, not a shocker of all of your success.
Yeah, exactly.
Your story, I just think it's a very beautiful story. And I think how you hold yourself, you're letting your personality and interest shine. And I'm very much on board with you in the sense of being passionate and being, excited about things. You might be excited about something that I know nothing about, but because you're excited, please, Victoria, tell me more. I'm so intrigued, and that gets the conversation going. So is there anything that you would, outside of what was just discussed, that you would tell folks, whether it's maybe not just meeting people originally, but continuing that relationship? I think especially as you go on in your professional career, there's a lot of contacts, there's a lot of relationships. And yes, of course, there's some that you prioritize just because everyone's human. There's only so much time. But I guess, is there any advice or skills or anything like that you would say that help the building and continuation of that?
Okay, this may be oversimplifying things, but I would say there are two things. Anytime you're anywhere and you see a person and you have a positive thought about them, share it. So if you like somebody's glasses, say, I really like your glasses. And here's why. Particularly, I've believed this my whole life, but right now, we're in a very contentious environment in our world. There's a lot of negativity, and really everybody just wants a little love. So if you see somebody, and you have to be careful. You can't be like, yo, you look in that. Be smart, people. But just, even if you overhear somebody, like I was recently in a cafe and this mom was negotiating with her very small 2-year-old to ward off a tantrum. And, I was sort of eavesdropping. You could hear everybody in the cafe was like, oh my God, is this kid gonna blow? And she thwarted it. And I said to her when I was leaving, you are the most graceful mom. And she just looked up at me and I genuinely felt that. I was like, wow, I learned a lot from watching her do that. Share that little tiny thing. So that's the first thing. Makes the world a much better place. It pays it forward. And just, I'm telling you, she may be having a meltdown of a day herself. And for my telling her that, then she can go home and have more patience with her son.
Yep.
And then the second thing is, if you have a conversation with somebody and later on something makes you think of them, tell them. And it feels really goofy in the moment, like, oh, I was just at the store buying a Heat bar, and it made me think of, wow, was that a retro candy I pulled out of nowhere? It made me think of you. Why? Think in that moment. Why in that moment was I thinking of Taylor? And then shoot Taylor a little note in LinkedIn. Hey, Taylor, remember how we're talking about Heat bars? I just was at CVS trying to figure out what candy I deserved for today, and guess what I picked? Crunching on, thinking of you. Whatever it might be, right? Like just some little touchstone, because why? It is the tiniest little gift you can pass to somebody else. I mean, I'm a big letter writer, so you can expect a letter from me at some point in time if you're addressing it online. But for me, a letter is like, oh, I picked a tiny piece of art, a stamp to put it on there, and I took the time to find a card and handwrite it and lick or seal the envelope and send it to you as a little gift. Same thing if you think of somebody, just to think like, oh, Amelia, I was doing X, Y, and Z, I thought of you. It makes somebody feel the way they should, that they were thought of. Yeah. And so I would say those are the two things in your random networking and intentional networking, is if you think of somebody, even if you haven't seen them in 3 years, send them a note.
I think that's great. That's amazing advice. Well, this half hour has flown by.
It literally, blink of an eye is always over.
So we always like to wrap up, Victoria, as you know, we like to wrap up by having everybody talk about a networking event cool networking event you'll be going to in the near future. And we would like to have you start off and share what
well, I'm going to make it quick because I really haven't had a chance to hear from most of you.
No.
Is I would say not your average networking event. And if anybody is interested in attending, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn and I will add, you just need to provide your name and your email address and I will add you to our distribution list. We would love to have you. There's room for everybody at the Not Your Average Networking event.
And I have put your LinkedIn up on the screen for people. So if you want to find Victoria on LinkedIn, that's where to find her.
Oh, wait, there's one group that's not welcome, trolls.
Oh, no trolls.
No online trolls. If you're a real life troll, you're welcome.
Well, thank you, Victoria. This was amazing. I think for me, it's interesting. I told everybody last week that I did this thing at the beginning of July where I basically sent out notes to 150 people that I hadn't talked to. Well, I don't think I actually got to 150. It was probably 50 in the end because my calendar has gotten so filled with amazing Zoom and coffees and so forth that I'm just I just have not been doing as many events recently. I guess my big event is not really a networking event, as we are taking my son off to college in LA this weekend. So that's I can't think past that in terms of thinking of it.
Would you like to talk about Bentley?
What about Bentley?
aren't you guys doing a big event at Bentley?
Oh, we did an event at Bentley back.
Already, it's passed.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. We did that back in when was that? April or something, I think.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, I was listening to old podcasts. I listened to the whole series. I think I listened to
You probably caught us a while back. Yeah, because we're on every week, our events tend to be like in the next week.
All right. Go on. Who else?
Anyway, all right, who's next?
Do you want me to?
I was going to say, I think that Jeff, I might have to give you like 150 of my people, and you can go through them too, because I'm probably behind on that.
I'm out of time.
What's that?
I'm all out of time, but go ahead.
Well, it's funny. You had met Rick Williams at one of the recent events, another author as well. And so Rick had written a book called Create the Future. And so he had, he and I had some good conversations as he was going through it, some ideas as well as far as promotion, things like that on LinkedIn. But I won one of, I think, 4 spots for a sailing event out of the Boston Yacht Club. And so tomorrow, actually, it's going to be about a dozen of us doing that. So that'll be a lot of fun. Now I'm going to, sorry.
I said, how perfect is that given the heat wave?
Yeah. Well, hey, on the water, it's definitely sailing, right? It's going to be a little bit cooler out there. He said wear a coat. I laughed, but I will say one more just because of my background here. My favorite one still is the white party at Raymond Vineyards. So I'm heading there for this weekend. So Jeff, I will as well be in California, just a different spot. But if you get bored, you should come out to Napa and join for the white party. And I'll hand it over to Taylor.
I might fly out there. That sounds fun.
Mono?
I am in week 2 of a new role. So no events this week or last week, mainly just ramping up. But I am, unfortunately, I won't be on the podcast next Monday because I will be in Chicago. We're actually doing an event at Wrigley Rooftop, yes, to talk everything ransomware, which I'm really excited about, and then catching the Cubs game right afterwards. So it'll be definitely a fun event, just not local here, unfortunately.
Congratulations on your new role.
Thank you so much.
Wait, do we want to take a minute to have Taylor talk about her new role, how she got it?
It's week 2, so you can't put the pressure on me, but we will definitely talk about it sooner rather than later.
All right.
Next time. Well, 2 times from now. Next time you're going to be on a rooftop. All right.
So, hi. I think I'm the last one.
Yes.
I have mostly lunches, coffees this week, but I do have I know Taylor's a part of it, but I don't know if anyone else knows about it, but I've started a women's networking group for people who are earlier on in their careers. Reason being is Taylor can speak to this. We go into a networking event. Chances are we're probably the only women of our age in the room, if not 1 or 2 other people. So I brought together, I think on this next call, we have a call, it's our 4th meeting. We did our first in-person one about a month ago. And I think now we've gotten up to 10 or 12 women on the call.
Cool.
Uh-oh. I think Amelia froze.
I can chime in. I was at the in-person one a month ago, so it was really nice. So we have a call this week virtually, and then so it's just kind of growing and adding some contacts. I'm actually gonna. Oh, she's back.
Oh yeah, we're not doing that blast.
It was a really fun face though that was stuck on.
Is it a meme?
The dangers of live podcasting. Well, thank you, Victoria. This was terrific. I think absolutely. I'm like dying to hear the rest of this conversation. I really want to know what all those questions were. So
if you guys want me back, if you need some filler, let me know.
Yeah, we should do an episode like that. Have Victoria back, and then it's a reverse interview.
I would so love that, and I feel much more comfortable doing that.
Done.
Well, we love either way, being guests or hosts, so we're good with that. Anyway, thank you so much. We'll be back, or some of us will be back next week with a new guest and more conversation on networking. So thank you again.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Victoria.
Here.
Nice to meet you.